Welcome back to Numbers Never Lie.
Welcome back to the newest episode of Numbers Never Lie with your host, Clutch13. We got a lot of good reviews in our beta episode, so I thought I would put a little bit more time into the look of our studio. I hope it looks a little bit more professional, and I'm always looking to improve upon the show. In this week's episode, it's mostly about the playoff picture and how each team stacks up against each other. I'll only do NFC against NFC teams and AFC against AFC teams this week so we don't get too confused. Here is the playoff picture as it stands today. We have the Ravens versus the Chargers, who barely squeaked into the playoffs last season only to win the Super Bowl, and now have done it again this year. So my question is, will there be a repeat performance? Our other AFC matchup pins the Bengals versus the Texans, who have the same identical record. Both teams have been impressive, but I bet anyone outside the Cincinnati organization didn't figure this is how they'd be spending their postseason. On the NFC side, we have my Saints going against the Eagles, who, correct me if I'm wrong, but finally have Kamara back. Eagles have been pretty consistent all season long, so it'll be a grueling matchup, I'm sure. And finally, we have the Lions and the 49ers. Both have great depth and plenty of playmakers. With the playoffs, anything can happen. Now, my first order of business is to introduce our newest staff member, Craze Voodoo of the New York Giants. He's a very qualified candidate that we all felt was deserving. I was actually going to do this show about him as a player, but someone accidentally took all my numbers that I was going to use. So instead, I'll use the first part to show the value of a staff member as a player. First, you have Fatal Attack, who won 10 games playing for San Diego. In Moneyball terms, Missy was paying an average of $1 million per win for Fatal to be his QB. 30% of San Diego's wins came from Fatal's line alone, so in this case it's absolutely worth it in my opinion. Hostility 1985 was purchased for $6.5 million. He is a perennial Pro Bowler and a legend in his own right in the VFL. I'm sure by his own standards he had a down year, but still managed to put up incredible individual stats along with 8 wins, and not all coming from the QB position, I remind you. Trinity and Tar Heels, both QBs, went for $14 million and $13.5 million respectively. As good as they may have been in the past, it's hard to justify spending that kind of money on any single player, especially since neither of the teams who drafted these players made the playoffs. I hope to see them in better position next season. Dart Shooter was contracted by the Lions last season. They got him at a bargain basement price of $500K. He obviously went above and beyond his total value, which is good because it balances out what Master Killer spent on Trinity for that line. Crazy Voodoo was in management this past season for the Giants, and in seasons past we had the value of management player set at $5 million. So for this argument's sake, we'll be using his base salary of $5 million. So before every season starts, we have a bidding process. If you're a new owner or an existing owner who wishes to know the value of a staff member, the average cost of a staff member for season 5 is just over $8 million. The average amount of wins by a staff player was 7.5, so you're paying over $1 million for each win by a staff member. Depending on if your team makes the playoffs, it's a high-risk move with very little reward if they are your best line. Okay, enough of that. Now back to the playoff matchups. First, we'll start out with the NFC, and as you can see here, I put up the records of each team and how they stack up against all the other NFC playoff teams. So taking a look at these numbers, it's easy to see that the 49ers and Saints have favorable matchups in the first round. But again, this is a whole new ballgame, and in the playoffs, anything can happen. Now over to the AFC side. The AFC, it was practically a 3-way tie for first place, and the Chargers sneaked in right ahead of the Dolphins. And you can take a look at all the records and how they stack up against each other. And it looks as if the favorite to come out of the AFC has to be the Ravens. But they would need the Texans to knock off the Bengals in the first round, or it could be a tough road to the Super Bowl. Well, that's it for this week's installment of Numbers Never Lie. If I messed up on any numbers, please no criticism. This is just for fun, and I hope you all enjoy. Good luck to all the playoff teams out there.